All right. Hello and welcome to the Nonprofit 411 podcast, where we explore resources and strategies to help nonprofit organizations thrive. I'm your host, Sarah Barton, and today I'm excited to welcome Alice Runke, president at GrantStation, to the podcast. Welcome, Alice. How are you
Thank
today?
you. It's so great to be here. I'm super excited.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And a bonus thank you that you're my first guest on the podcast. So thank you for being our inaugural guest.
It's
And
very fun.
yes, and thank you for supporting this new effort. So, GrantStation has been a resource that I've personally used for many years. It's actually a resource that I refer many other people to because it's affordable and it provides lots of opportunity for nonprofit organizations who are seeking out grants, especially if they're new to seeking out grants. I feel like it provides a lot of that basic information about how to get started. And so I want to have you tell us more about the resource and just kind of share with us how you support nonprofits in our community. All right.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Perfect. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role at GrantStation?
Yeah, so I am the president of GrantStation, and I just joined in that capacity just 2 years ago. But before that, I did a lot of training for GrantStation. So we do a lot of online education that supports nonprofits across the country and even across the world. And so I was one of the presenters for many years before I joined as the president. And before that, also, I was a consultant here in West Virginia and wrote grants and did a lot of development work and funding searches and planning sessions and things like that to help build the capacity of nonprofit organizations. So
Mhm.
that whole capacity building thing has always been really dear to my heart as a way to really help kind of level the playing field for those small organizations that are doing great work, but they just don't maybe have some of those skills or abilities to be as competitive as the bigger organizations. And so when I got the opportunity to move over to GrantStation and what GrantStation stands for, and how we're helping to build that capacity, it was really a no-brainer. It was very, very exciting to be able to move into this different role and support organizations on a wider scale.
Yeah, so that's you and I are aligned on our passion for helping, this nonprofits have the resources that they need and in capacity building because so many of them are doing amazing work in our community. So, I appreciate that. So, how can you tell us how the resources that you provide through GrantStation, can you give us some examples of some success stories, like some ways that you've seen it benefit any specific nonprofits or seen it
Sure.
impact our
Yeah.
community?
Yeah. So a couple of things, just to go back for 1 second, but the main reason that people tend to join GrantStation and get a membership is because of our database where we have the state funders, federal funders, and then all those foundations and corporations and associations that give money. And so you buy a membership to us so that you have access to those databases to find those sources that match your mission and your vision for your organization.
Mhm.
And so we have in our database thousands of foundations and such that organizations can look at and see if it matches their organization. And so that's probably our biggest, sell, if you will. That's
Mhm.
why people would come and buy us. But like you said, we're also very affordable and we are affordable on purpose. It's part of our core values to make sure that we're leveling the playing field. And so that's one thing that makes us kind of unique and allows again those small organizations to compete with the bigger organizations. So we keep our prices very, very, very affordable for any organization. But along with that, like you were saying, we have a lot of resources to help organizations build their grant strategy. So there's a lot
Mhm.
of tools and tutorials and samples and all sorts of resources on our website to help you kind of build that strategy of how you will apply for grants or set your strategy for a year, and then how to write those proposals. And so again, we have those tutorials, examples. We every other year we do a winning grant proposal competition and we
Oh,
post those successful grants on our website so that nonprofits can read through those to see what made those proposals successful and try to emulate different parts of them. So it's more than just the database, even though the
mhm,
database is
yeah.
really the big sell, that we have all that wraparound support to help someone, go from the very beginning all the way to securing a grant. And we do have, lots of success stories of people raising, hundreds of thousands of dollars using our database. And the other thing that a lot of people are, always really um, thankful for is that, online education that we do, or just, we have a great customer service team that will help answer questions and things like that. So it's quite a wraparound of services to help nonprofits and to really be a resource.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a seasoned grant writer and I've used your resources too. I think that they're really phenomenal. You have templates on there and you make it very accessible for anyone to try, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
s-
And I
that's
love that you say that because I think that that's also what most grant professionals, when they're thrown into the position, they didn't mean to be a grant professional. Someone just
yep.
said, "Hey, here's a grant. Why don't you write that? It's very simple to do." Right? And so, we always need that extra bit of support and, you know how to learn how to do that and the tips and the tricks and how to understand it. And so, I love this organization because I just love, how it approaches nonprofits, and again is really there to truly be a resource.
Yeah, I love that about you too. Um, so I work with a lot of small nonprofits and they're so scared that they're not competitive when it comes to grants. What do you have to say to them?
It is very competitive environment. I'm not going to pretend that, it's not grant seeking is very competitive, but I am a firm believer that it's skills that can be learned. And that by again looking at samples of successful grants, of taking some of those tutorials or some of our online education, that these are skills that you can develop. And the other thing that I find with all of our resources and with all of our online education is we're very practical. We all of us that do the webinars, we really understand that small organization that's trying to get started, and so, we really provide, action steps, resources, support, and help to help the organizations learn how to do it and build their own capacity, to be successful in grant writing.
Yeah, and I think we all start somewhere. I think like it's ideal. You're the first guest on Nonprofit 411 and you know, this is something new to me, but I when you try something, then you can, get better and better as you go along and you can learn what works and what didn't work. And I really always encourage nonprofits that well, I always encourage them to contact the foundations if that's a possibility because many of the people in nonprofit work are just here because we want to see our communities be healthier and they're friendly people on the other end of the phone. So, what other advice do you have for that organization that may be doing it for the first time,
Yep.
and they're really nervous that they're not sure what to do? How would you recommend that they approach like interacting with the foundations or organizations?
Yes. You are completely right, Sarah, that most of the foundations are very, very helpful. especially those smaller foundations like your community foundations or your little or big family foundations, that they will support you and help you and provide you with tips or resources or suggestions or tell you flat out, don't apply because you don't match what we do and save you the time. So that reaching out, while it is kind of intimidating, I know for, someone starting and even a seasoned pro, uh, it is a really important piece of what you want to do. And when I had my consulting business, I would often do that funding search of finding those funders that matched the kind of mission and vision of what my clients were doing. But then I always said to my clients, I always said, you reach out first and talk to them about the projects that you want us to write for, and then get some of their feedback, because if you do that, the chances of success are way higher. Um, because
Yeah.
again, they'll tell you if like it's not a match, or they'll tell you we're looking for this kind of matching funds that you have to have, or we're looking for these kinds of partnerships that we're looking for you to have. And they'll give you some of those uh, ideas of things that you might, still need to develop a little bit. But once you know, you can do it.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
reaching out really is a real difference maker in how you yeah, and how successful you're going to be. The other thing is just to talk with other nonprofit organizations in general, and then especially just in field that you're in, and try to get some of that support from them. Ask them who they are funded by, and do they have contacts at those foundations for you to reach out to, or do they have any tips about how to work with this funder or that funder. And so just your own networking within your field. While again, in some ways like you're competing with them, but in other ways, people are very generous about providing that information to one another. So don't hesitate to reach out to your peers as well to see what kinds of tips and tricks they have.
So I want to ask this question because I want nonprofits to understand, if your project doesn't align with the foundation, does that mean you have the wrong project, or does it mean it's just the wrong funder? Can you help share a little bit about
Yes.
that?
So it is completely that you have the wrong funder. That you can make minor adjustments to your project that might meet the funder's need, but you really want to come at a funding source with who you are and what you're doing and make sure that it matches with the funder. So you don't want to do it the other way around, because then what happens is all of a sudden you start to change to meet the funding opportunity. And then you continue to change. Every time you see a pile of money, you change your project, you change your organization to get that money. But that doesn't mean that that's what your organization was designed to do. Um, so, again, sometimes a funder might have a little, not quirk, but a little component that they want you to add. That's fine. But you want to make sure that you're aligned from the beginning. And I
Yeah,
do have a kind of a funny story about a community foundation here in West Virginia. And for a little bit of time, they were giving out a $50 like award to the best written grant. And then that $50 award, or it was maybe 100, I can't remember, but it would that whoever won it could donate it to another nonprofit. They could donate it to their own nonprofit, whatever it was. But this foundation was trying to just encourage the good grant writing skills.
mhm.
So when I was talking with the executive director at the time, I said, well, that's really neat. So, the person won the grant award, then they won the $100 that, can go back to the organization. And then she said, Alice, what was really interesting in this last round was that the best written grant was not funded. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why? And she said, because it didn't align with what we did. It wasn't an area that we even funded. Was the grant written beautifully? Yes. It just wasn't a topic that we covered. So while that person did win the $100, they didn't win the grant. And so that's why it's really important to align with what the funder is doing. And then just to kind of connect back to GrantStation, that's also why within each profile that we write of the funder, we write, again, what they're seeking to fund, what areas of interest they're looking at, what types of support they give. And so we're always, just by looking at our profiles, you'll be able to really discern, is this something to explore more? Or is this something that just isn't going to fit my organization?
Oh, yes. And that's another great point. So, at Grant Station, if I know what I'm interested in finding funding for, can I search based on that information and find the grants out there that are aligned with what I'm interested in?
Absolutely. So you can search, there's a lot of different ways you can search, but you can search by geographic area. So you can look at funders that specifically, in West Virginia's case, fund West Virginia. Then you can look at national funders who would fund any state, including West Virginia. Then you can search under areas of interest. So looking for, if you're working within human services or you're working within education, you could search under those areas of interest. You can search by looking at target populations of who you serve. So if you serve children or the elderly or, individuals with disabilities, you can search by that. And then you can also search by types of support. So perhaps you're looking for equipment costs, or you're looking for, general operating support or capacity building funds. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use the database. And, we always encourage you to be as creative as possible to look, from several different angles at what impact your projects make, and then get out there and search, widely around those different areas to see what would be available. That again, you could make the point. Let's say you search by target population. So serve again youth. You can make that argument to any funder about, you serving youth and how you align with them in that way. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but it's easy to do. It's even, if you're a little nerdy like me, it's fun to do. It's just kind of
Yeah.
clicking boxes, but it's really just, looking at what's available and how, you might align with those funders.
Yeah, that's great. It's such a useful part of the resource. So, and I always like to do really broad and then really narrow. And
Yes,
you get different funders both ways. Sometimes they
absolutely.
overlap, but sometimes they don't overlap. So I'm with you. It's kind of fun for me.
Yeah.
So how can nonprofits best access you? And how can they get involved and learn more about Grant Station?
Yes. So we are usually on sale. We're on sale a lot of the year for $179 for 1 year membership or $249 for a 2 year membership. I also want to share that if you are a member of the West Virginia Nonprofit Association, you can also access GrantStation for free. So a membership to the West Virginia Nonprofit Association also gets you a GrantStation membership. So if you are a member already, make sure that you're using that as a resource. And then if you're, not a member, you can either think about becoming a member, or you can just go out and purchase the membership, directly through us. So there's lots of ways to, get access to us. Once you're a member, everything on our website is free, except for some of our online education is kind of extra that you would add on. We still do a lot of free webinars, but some of them are a cost. But everything else, every tutorial, every tool, every um, all the databases, all of that is 100% at your access for the entire time of your membership.
Perfect. Yes, I'm actually a member through the West Virginia Nonprofit Association. So I use that
Yes.
benefit. And when I launched Profuse Solutions and Nonprofit 411, I actually chose to become a member of the Nonprofit Association because you get bonus. I think you get bonus resources. Not only do you get Grant Station, you also get
Oh, sure.
the services of the Nonprofit Association.
Yes.
Um, Now, this is actually just it's a little bit off the what we were talking about, but I have a funder who said that they're not being utilized in the ways that they'd like to be. How can funders get involved?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so we also we have just a couple of things within our database. We also only profile funders who are actively seeking grant applications. So
Mhm.
some funders you will find are kind of like closed shops. They give their money, but they give them to pre-selected organizations. And so even if you applied, they wouldn't consider your application. So within our database are only those active funders. And we also have real life researchers. And that's our biggest staff component is our research team because what we're always trying to do, um, past does inform the present. And so we do pull information from where a funder had funded in the past. But sometimes funders, and they change, the areas they want to change, their focus areas moving forward. So every year we have real people who go into the database and try to connect with all the funders that are in our database. And every year, at least once, every profile is updated. So that funder, if they would reach out to us, just info@grantstation.com, we could connect them with our research team to really help them make sure that their profile is as up to date as possible. And then we also have a free resource for anyone that would like to take advantage of this. And this is from a nonprofit perspective or a funder perspective. And so every week we publish what's called the Insider newsletter. And the Insider profiles current federal opportunities, current national opportunities, and current regional opportunities. And so you can just go right to our website and sign up to receive the Insider. It will come to you for free once a week. But if there's a funder who would also be interested in being profiled in the Insider, again, just contact us at info@GrantStation, and we'd be happy to make sure that that funding opportunity got out in our newsletter so that they would get more of that exposure that they're looking for. Yeah, so both of those are great free resources on both sides to help funders get the word out and have the nonprofits be able to see that opportunity. And when I was a consultant, I mean, not a week went by when I didn't find something in that newsletter. And even if I wasn't, working with a client at the time that was going to, need something like that, I would ship it off to somebody and I'd say, hey, I know you, serve domestic violence people that have been affected by domestic violence. Here's a funding opportunity for you, or whatever the topic was. So it's always very diverse. And you'll almost always find something that's of relevance to your community.
And they can sign up for that even if they are not members,
Even if you're
correct?
not a member, it's just right front of our website at www.grantstation.com, and you can
Okay,
sign up for that right there.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we wrap up?
No, we're really excited to be on the first on your podcast. We're really excited to support the nonprofit community and get out there and share our resources. So, feel free to contact me at any time if you have ideas for partnerships or getting more memberships out or ideas for trainings. Always open to hearing, what the nonprofit community needs and how we can serve that need. So my information, you can just find me at Alice@GrantStation.com. And we'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and sharing all these valuable insights. To our listeners, we thank you for tuning in to the Nonprofit 411 podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes where we explore resources to help your nonprofit succeed. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Thank you.